Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It is Thursday, July 31st, 2025. 7 months already in the bag on this year. Where has the time gone? I'll tell you where it's gone. It's gone to talking about Noah Fant signing with the Cincinnati Bengals, an earth-shaking move. Kyle Dvorchak's going to lay it all out for you. Earth-shaking move for my potential bank accounts. Isaiah Likely, who I've got a lot riding on this year, I got hurt the second I talked him up for a while. On Tuesday's show, Braelon Allen, another guy who could bankrupt me this year because I have a lot of Breece. Love Breece Hall. The Athletic Zack Rosenblatt saying he's one of the stars of Jets camp so far. Absolutely love to see it. Hate to see it. Zach Moss released in Cincinnati. Is it Taj Brooks' season? Kaleb Johnson struggling in pass protection. Who could have ever guessed? Then Lawrence Jackson joining us the second half of the show. We love to do this with Lawrence, where he just talks about the guys he really, really wants this summer. A lot of big names, one or two smaller names, people who aren't going to really necessarily surprise you. They're going to be drafted. The guys that we haven't talked about a ton yet, and is why we like them, why they are worthy of their ADPs. I think last year, Kyle, one of these players for Lawrence was Anthony Richardson. And he was one of those players for so many different fantasy analysts. Then it didn't happen at all. It didn't work whatsoever. He looked very, very bad. A few players have looked worse, actually, the past 4 or 5 years. It was really quite unfortunate. Even though he's producing fantasy points, Anthony Richardson has been putting in a lot of work on the offseason gridiron then. And Daniel Jones was clearly signed with an eye towards making him the starter, $14 million guaranteed. That is kind of giving up on Anthony Richardson money. But listen, then they saw Daniel Jones practice once, and the Colts media immediately said, I don't know, actually Anthony Richardson could maybe still win the job. Then they saw Daniel Jones practice a second time, and they said, actually, Anthony Richardson can not only get the starting job, he's looked better than Daniel Jones. And like Kyle Pitts before him, are we getting near, but it might work for us this time it counts territory with Mr. Anthony Richardson for 2025?
I mean, I am at least back on board with the idea that he is the week 1 starter. I truly could not have been more out whenever he re-aggravated the shoulder injury that wasn't from last year, but was from the year before that required surgery back in the day, not this time around. So he's got the shoulder surgery, and then they obviously bring in Daniel Jones with what I thought was like a real competition contract. I still think Ant could have won the competition, but the shoulder injury, I said, just can't happen anymore. They're going to get too many reps for Daniel Jones. They've stressed consistency so much. And Daniel Jones, while not the pinnacle of consistency, he's should be consistently
bad. So that's good.
There you go.
For Daniel Jones. Yeah.
I've never seen a less consistent quarterback than Anthony Richardson. The highs are so high and the lows are just stunningly low. But then, like you said, rubber meets the road, and you see these guys play football, and you're like, as bad as Anthony Richardson has been, I mean, by all accounts, he has maybe improved. It's a small sample of training camp reps, but he maybe has improved. And two, more importantly, you're like, who cares if he's improved or not? I don't want to see Daniel Jones play football. This is not a good experience. He is fit to be a backup, and frankly, Ant probably is too. Like, I don't really know if he's a future starter, but there's one way the Colts can dig themselves out of the hole they're in as a franchise, and it's find a franchise quarterback. There is 0.000% chance Daniel Jones is that guy. There's like a 6% chance Anthony Richardson is that guy, but why would you not be betting on that until your last dying breath?
And that's the real problem for Daniel Jones, I feel like. Where Anthony Richardson last year, he was truly at the point where literally anyone who's like earned a spot in the NFL, not like necessarily an end of roster guy, anyone who had played in the NFL, actually attempted, say, 200 or 300 career passes, was probably a better passer than Anthony Richardson was, where you could upgrade the passing with literally anyone. Daniel Jones fit that bill. The problem was he was as marginal of an upgrade as humanly possible from a passing perspective because he doesn't do anything deep. He's really not that explosive middle of the field. He's somewhat accurate, but he works so hard to avoid turnovers that there aren't big plays. And he's such a marginal upgrade that it's almost like once they got out on the practice field, they're like, yeah, okay, he passes a little better, but I mean, so like he doesn't do anything cool. Whereas Anthony Richardson at least does a lot of cool stuff. And you could just see maybe getting a third chance. And quarterbacks are almost developing slower. So people are saying, many are saying that his throwing motion, Anthony Richardson's throwing motion, looks a little more Josh Allen-y this summer. He's never going to be Josh Allen. But Josh Allen was Anthony Richardson before Anthony Richardson was, where it was until then, the very rare third-year breakout. We've just seen a little more of this where the game has gotten so complex with like the exotic blitzes, the exotic pressures, that quarterback development this isn't going as quickly as it was during the passing golden age. And again, no one is expecting that outcome, but we probably discounted the possibility that Anthony Richardson could just get marginally better enough to, actually be a more valuable, better option under center than Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think what you're looking for, mostly as a passer, because as a runner, he's going to be better than all these guys, is like the Trevor Lawrence year 2 step, where he had the worst coaching of my lifetime in his rookie season, and he played like garbage in that coaching. And then they go out and they make improvements both to the staff and to the team around him. And he's not special in his second year, but he's pretty good. And I believe, was that the year they made the playoffs and then they actually knocked off the Chargers in like a hilarious comeback win?
They did.
Like, he was fine as a passer. And if you got even that, or Bryce Young is another one where, much like Anthony Richardson, it didn't even happen between year 1 and year 2. It happened in the middle of year 2 and required a benching, which we've also had happen with Anthony Richardson, where Bryce last year played extremely well down the stretch. And ironically, it involves some rushing too. I think you were hoping for him to be, in this season, a competent, even a below average passer, right? If he's the 25th best passer in the NFL, but the best runner or the second best or the third best, you are very happy with that outcome as a franchise. And for fantasy purposes, it's gold.
People just need to be prepared. This is going to be one of the ultimate narrative roller coasters of the entire summer, where the Colts are a really well-covered team, despite being in my beloved Midwest. They have 4 or 5 different beat writers, lots of people doing like blow-by-blows of practice. So there's going to be some ups and downs here, but there's already – I don't think anyone anticipated camp starting this positively for Anthony Richardson. We have to keep in mind it's just the start. The pads have barely come on. Preseason has not been played at all. But there's going to be a lot of reports here. You got to keep it locked to rotoworld.com as we update the status of this time it might count for us with Anthony Richardson. I mean, something that doesn't really count for anything, Kyle, I feel like, is Noah Fant going to the Cincinnati Bengals. I actually wrote the Browns in our show sheet. Thank God. I actually remembered it was the Bengals as I was reading it live. Does Noah Fant create any fantasy value of his own, or does he just like kind of kill Mike Gesicki's? Because the really curious thing here is Mike Gesicki. So when Noah Fant was first signed, I was like, oh, maybe they're going to cut Mike Gesicki. Then I Googled Mike Gesicki, rotoworld.com. Like, nope, new 3-year deal signed in March, guaranteed money. Mike Gesicki, not even close to being cuttable. I said in our VOD, you and I did, we look at this through the fantasy lens where it doesn't really make any sense. From the Bengals perspective, it's probably, hey, a good player is available. We're going to sign a good player. There's no downside. But are there any implications to this move in fantasy other than maybe stealing a few valuable fantasy points from Mike Gesicki that might knock him out of the top 24?
Yeah, to me, Mike Gesicki, especially in redraft, but I think this is true in best ball too, was such a weak bet because when you look at how he played when T. Higgins was out there, he was just completely unusable. It was 6 PPR points per game. Of course, the flip side of that is in the games that they missed T. Higgins, he averaged 14 PPR points per game. He was an elite fantasy option in those very few contests. And I think that's something that we should expect to hold true. Mike Gesicki is a de facto wide receiver with tight end eligibility. He's not that good of a wide receiver, but the wide receiver 2, when that happens, obviously when T. Higgins is out on the Bengals, even if I don't think they're the most talented, the wide receiver 2 puts up fantasy points. I think the one caveat now is that I don't know for sure that he is the wide receiver 2 should anything happen to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. I think it's at least possible that Noah Fant pushes him for that role because Noah Fant is the exact same type of player. He's de facto wide receiver, ran over half of his routes from the slot last year, and we just have tight end eligibility for him. So now that I'm not 100% sure that if T. Higgins or Chase goes down, that we're getting tight end 1 Mike Gesicki, I just don't see the point in drafting him.
There really is. There's no point. It is a shame when a move doesn't create fantasy value, but just saps someone else's. And Gesicki, he'd been going like that tight end 18 to 22 range, I think in summer best ball drafts. And I would just probably say outside the top 24 now. And just not really a great flyer. Not that you would be really drafting him in redraft leagues anyway. Maybe some of the deeper sicko ones, you'd be using a final round pick on Mike Gesicki, but I think probably just takes him off the board completely. And Noah Fant is not getting on the board himself. The Bengals, listen, we should they signed a good player, or I don't know, maybe a good player. Good for them, but probably the last we're going to say about it in fantasy. We're not going to say much about this next one because we talked about it a lot on Tuesday. My love for Isaiah Likely. John Harbaugh has called him an all-pro in the making. I called him a playmaker anytime they give him opportunities. And he goes out and appears to break his foot. They're claiming it's minor. They're claiming he's going to be ready for week 1. They're also not claiming, they are revealing that he underwent surgery. That has been confirmed. Surgery, never great, especially this time of year. We can probably take them at their word that he'll be out there for week 1, but You were already pumping the brakes on my Isaiah Likely hype. Does this go a long way towards shoring up Mark Andrews as like the tight end 8 or 9? Or does it not really matter? The both well-known commodities, this coaching staff with well-established roles, and we shouldn't read too deeply into Isaiah Likely missing 1 month of practice.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty skeptical even that Isaiah Likely is ready for week 1 because like John Harbaugh's actually relatively forthcoming in that he immediately says like, yeah, he's going to undergo surgery. And he says the reported timeline that was out there is more or less accurate. He confirmed that, which was 6 weeks. 6 weeks technically is the other side of week 1. Of course, 3 days on the right side of 6 weeks, and he's ready for week 1. But you're telling me a guy is going to miss basically the entirety of training camp. He got 4, maybe days, depending on when they started. Guy gets a backup tight end, gets 4 days of training camp, and he's going to go out and be a fantasy relevant asset. I don't really see that. And the big issue with Mark Andrews last year was not that he was like inefficient, that he looked dust when he was out there, so he wasn't out there all the time. And maybe that's part of getting older and being less talented as you age, is that your team maximizes your efficiency by minimizing your role. But we even saw over the second half, was really after their buys, was like the final month or so, he increased his route share while also slightly increasing his yards per route run, which tells me if you're an old guy who can go out there and increase your role over the second half of the season, but maintain or even increase your efficiency, I don't think you're in decline in that capacity. Pat, at the end of every football season, your blurbs are as crisp as ever. And that's how you know you've still got it. You're still writing those good blurbs. And it's week 17. You're writing up the worst players. You've still got it. And we saw a little bit of that still. I mean, frankly, we saw a lot of it. He was 1.8 yards per route run, 6th in the NFL. I think Mark Andrews maybe / probably has still got it. And this clears the path for him to get back to a Mark Andrews caliber role. That was the big issue. So for me, early in the season, this is like a really good opportunity for Mark Andrews to reestablish himself as Mark Andrews. I'm probably just going to take him over TJ Hawkinson. Like, I just think he's a better player and is going to score more points.
For not being in decline, Mark Andrews sure had a funny way of showing it by literally eliminating the Baltimore Ravens from maybe the best chance they'll ever have to win the Super Bowl. And I would say counterintuitive take on peaking late. There's kind of this phenomenon in baseball where Albert Pujols, as he got older, Paul Goldschmidt, as he got older, they would get off to these absurdly cold starts and be like, I just needed to warm up, just needed to be June. And then they would eventually warm up and start hitting again. But then 1 year, they just never get warmed up and they never got better. And it's a sign of their decline. And I don't necessarily think it's a great sign for Mark Andrews' future that he needed such a long runway to finally be Mark Andrews last year. He could have been playing through something, though, that we didn't understand.
Well, he got in the car crash before the season.
Right. He was doing that. We never really knew the full extent of that injury.
I still don't know the full extent of the injury.
No. So, but that is the counter take on Mark Andrews. The problem is for Isaiah Likely. I actually think, so you might think, like, why would a team rush Isaiah Likely back for week 1 if holding him out 1 game longer, would do wonders for his health? They are playing the Buffalo Bills in week 1 in Buffalo, a game that could decide home field advantage in the AFC, happening in week 1. So I do think there's maybe some incentive to rush him back. On the other hand, even if they do rush him back, you kind of alluded to this. The problem isn't necessarily his health. It's his conditioning. He's not practicing at all in training camp. So even if he's like healthy by the book in week 1, he's not going to be in condition to play 40 or 45 snaps. And I'm just so bummed about this injury because I really thought Isaiah Likely was a making the leap guy. And he could do it, but now it might be in the second half of the season after Mark Andrews is banged up. And I just think this resets it back to the status quo here, where Isaiah Likely is going to pop up for some splash plays. But my hopes for like the role really growing and Isaiah Likely like really leveling up, I'm taking a huge hit here. And I'm very sad about this summer injury. By the way, someone in the NFL office despises the Baltimore Ravens. This is their schedule to begin the year: at Buffalo, then versus Cleveland. Oh, that's fine.
Where can I watch that Buffalo game? I was just curious.
On NBC, streaming on Peacock, Sunday night, so September 7th, at Buffalo, then versus Cleveland. Okay, there's a dub. We admit it. They start off at least 1-1 at worst. But then versus Detroit, at Kansas City, versus Houston, versus the Rams.
This is awesome.
This is like the most brutal 6-game opening slate I've ever seen for a team. If the Ravens come out of that 4-2, they will be sitting really pretty in the AFC. So, man, is that a tough start to the year. A tough start to not getting another Spirit Halloween built in my backyard with the reports coming out of New York Jets camp. I needed Breece Hall to light it up. I definitely didn't need the 3-man backfield. To be honest, I didn't really need the 2-man backfield. We can live with the 2-man backfield, though, for Breece Hall. We couldn't live with him being the 1B back. The Athletic is reporting Braelon Allen, who was not good last year, has been one of the stars of Jets camp so far. Do we just take this report in stride, say it doesn't really change anything because maybe it really doesn't change anything? Or, I don't know, do we have our antenna up that, all right, we're getting a little more worried about Breece maybe? How do you interpret this report?
Antenna up is how I put it. I think it's like we want to be measured in all of these takes. Just because one beat reporter sees some good stuff from Braelon Allen and the coaches are positive on him doesn't mean that he's going to flip Breece Hall. On the other hand, I don't think we should expect to see a breakout from a guy who's been silent the entirety of training camp, especially early in the year. Like, I think these do move the needle. I just don't want to overreact. But I've said this before, these moments give us a good chance to reflect on the bets we were making. I was with you. Like, I love drafting Breece Hall. He's super explosive. He catches passes. Sometimes he gets all the work. Unclear if he's going to do that this year. But you look back at what he did last year, and it just wasn't that good of a year for him. He had a worse breakaway percent, worse rush yards over expected, and the same yards after contact as Brian Robinson. Like, he was not Breece Hall. And some of that was likely the offense. On the other hand, last year's offense was still better than any other offense he's played on. Like, he's played on terrible teams for his entire career, unfortunately. So it's not like you can say, like, oh, well, it was just the offense. Once the environment improves, he's had bad environments all of his career. We've also seen every single one of his efficiency metrics drop year over year over year. And one of that includes the fact that he tore his ACL in his first year. And then he comes back and looks really good the year he comes back, but he doesn't look as good last year as well. And even when he came back, he wasn't at the level he was as a rookie. Like, sometimes these guys just lose their explosiveness early in their career. I still think he's a solid bet to be an RB1, but my unwavering faith it's wavering, in fact.
Yeah, that's sometimes, even when you're young, you just suffer the exact wrong injury at the exact wrong time, and you're never quite the same again. And in a league where everyone's an elite athlete, maybe all Breece Hall lost when he tore his ACL was, quote unquote, 2 to 3% of his athleticism. That could be the 2 to 3% that makes the difference. And where every player on the field is an elite athlete. And it's one report, it's one guy, like you said. It is just worth finding a way. Like, if the bad outcome for Breece Hall were going to occur, this would be one of the things that happened along the way. And so you find a way, that's not great. Like, it's kind of like, they say, there's a risk for a severe thunderstorm today. You're like, oh, we'll see what happens. I'll look at the sky. Like, yeah, it does look kind of black up there. So it's one of the things that would happen along the way if the bad outcome were to occur. That's the way to interpret the report. We hope the reports get better for Breece as training camp rolls on. Because let's be real, Breece is good. Braelon Allen is bad. And maybe at the end of the season,
drafting Breece. And the pass catching stuff really makes me feel good, because even though last year his yards per out run fell again, he was still 14th or 15th in yards per out run. At worst, he is a high volume and good efficiency pass catcher. That's a really strong floor. And we saw last year, Justin Fields, who actually did throw to his running backs a lot in his few starts with Pittsburgh. So there's a strong floor here. The Braelon stuff just makes me feel a little bit queasy on the ceiling. Can I get a top 3 fantasy finish from Breece? The more I see of Braelon, the less I think that it's likely or possible for Breece.
We'll see what happens when they release the tapes at the end of the year. At the end of the year, for me saying Breece is good, Braelon Allen is bad. Zach Moss, a guy who looked like he was going to be a thorn in Chase Brown's side last year. Then he literally broke his neck. Did not get to finish the season. A really scary injury. He was back trying to earn the Bengals' number 2 role this summer. Apparently just not healthy enough. They cut him after only a few days of practice. Maybe a career ender for Zach Moss. Maybe a career starter for, I believe, 6th rounder, Taj Brooks. A guy fantasy managers were already kind of dialed in on because of how uncertain Zach Moss's situation is. Is Taj Brooks already the clear-cut backup for starter and Chase Brown, who did everything last year, Kyle? But he just did everything okay. He wasn't amazing at anything. He's really a box checker. Is Taj the unquestioned number 2? Is Taj maybe a concern for Chase Brown?
Yeah, unquestioned. Yeah, sure. Like, I'm not going to kid myself with Samaj P. Ryan, who, like, I don't think he's had 100 carries in a season in like 5 or 6 years. He is a good pass catching specialist. He has that, like, veteran presence type of role that you expect from a guy who's been in the league as long as he has. But if Chase Brown goes down, who do I think gets more carries? Dude, let me bet on Taj Brooks, who had back-to-back seasons with over 1,500 rushing yards coming out of college, 3 straight seasons with 20-plus catches. His efficiency was just fine on basically all fronts, which kind of reminds me of what we're seeing with Chase Brown, where when he was in a limited role 2 years ago, he looked like the most explosive back in the NFL. Last year, when he gets that full-time role, it wasn't that he was bad, but as you expect, the role increases. The efficiency comes down to where he just looks solid, but a player who is solid and gets all the touches on an offense that is humming, they score a ton of fantasy points. And to me, that's kind of what you expect from Taj Brooks. I don't think he's a special player, but he has shown an extreme capacity to take on a lot of work in all phases as well. I still think it's a deep best ball. It's a deep dynasty cut, but he's getting to the point where I'm saying he's one of the better 20th, 18th round, depending on your format best ball picks.
Yes, Taj, I got a little excited about him when I was doing his pre-draft profile for our free draft guide. I was like, oh man, I kind of forgot that this profile is kind of nice. And yeah, Samaje Perine, by the way, Samaje Perine is the world's oldest 29-year-old. Samaje Perine, who is talked about as if he has 1.5 feet in the grave, is still under the age of 30.
Really? I would have guessed 32 would have been like my bare minimum.
Samaje Perine is, however old you think Taysom Hill is, that's how young Samaje Perine is, if that makes sense. Taysom's always older than you expect. Samaje always younger than you would expect. So Taj Brooks, a guy who could be, basically doesn't have an ADP, basically won't be getting drafted in home redraft leagues. I like him as the late round flyer. What I really like is taking a quick break and then coming back after this with Mr. Lawrence Jackson. Thursday night, the NFL preseason kicks off as the Detroit Football Lions face the Los Angeles Chargers in the Hall of Fame game. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on, of course, NBC and, of course, streaming on Peacock. But Hendon Hooker versus who's the other backup in this game, Kyle?
Trey Lance and I think Taylor Heineke.
Trey Lance. Oh, my God. I forgot.
Dude, I'm so excited to see Trey Lance play football. Bless us with it.
I forgot it was Trey Lance season. I didn't forget it's Lawrence Jackson season. Let's buzz in our friend and our colleague, Lawrence. Lawrence is here. Yeah. Lawrence is here.
I'm going to get some reps tonight, too.
That's right.
This is an NBC game. All of us should be getting a couple snaps as slot receiver.
Actually, it is in our employment agreement. We are supposed to get to play in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah.
We had to pay our own way to Canton to do it because they don't really want us to do it. They're like, if you really want to do it, we're not going to pay to send you there because we don't want you to die. But it is on NBC. You are actually allowed to play in the game.
Got to buy your own gear, too, everything. You even got to buy your own jersey. Go out, get your own Aaron Rodgers. Justin Herbert jersey. I don't know why I just confused those two quarterbacks.
We have Steelers talk coming up, which I assume that's where this comes from.
You know what's really sad and funny? Oh, it's not actually funny. It's mostly just sad. Is that Kyle, Lawrence, and I have witnessed a non-NFL football player pop his Achilles on the football field in Canton, Ohio.
And he was an insane athlete, too.
He was. We won't name names.
Then when you pull the Achilles, though, it just make it look like you was trying too hard. And when you do something, and I think the year after when we went, the fantasy doctor was helping the dude who tweaked his ham.
He was. The fantasy doctor helped someone with a hamstring explosion. We won't name names, but yeah.
I was like, you better limp off, man. Don't have that guy come and help you.
An industry acquaintance, though, popped his Achilles on the Hall of Fame field. Canton, Ohio. I will be there for the Fantasy Football Expo, August 8th to 10th. Lawrence is here to talk his 5 guys that he's drafting the most this summer. But first, we thought we'd ask him about Kaleb Johnson. Kaleb Johnson, I know people are taking him sight unseen, Kyle, as an RB2. It's felt like always a bit crazy and adventurous to me. He's apparently struggling in pass protection, which is always the kiss of death for young players. How do you feel about Kaleb Johnson's ADP? And are you concerned about, it's July 31st. They're probably really testing him in pass pro. They don't even want him to be perfect in pass protection on July 31st. I guess that's not true, but yeah. What do you think of the reports? What do you think of Kaleb, Kyle?
I was interested in him, right? This is an offense that we expect to run the football a lot, run it well, and it would make sense that just big hammer of a back who can hit home runs in Kaleb Johnson would fit what they're going to be doing in Pittsburgh really well. But I kind of agree with you. We were paying already a pretty hefty price for that. And he's got what I think is a really good backup. I'm interested, Pat, what do you think this backfield looks like? Every time I try and pump Jaylen Warren, you yell at me. I get shouted down for trying to be excited about Jaylen Warren.
Oh, it looks like a fiasco because the entire team looks like a fiasco. Like, I've seen this movie before as a St. Louis Cardinals fan where you delay the rebuild, not just 1 year too long, but like half a decade too long. You just keep running back the same core that was never even good to begin with. and like thinking, well, what if one or two guys finally live up to their potential this year? The team's actually going to be good. I feel like that's the zone the Steelers are in. Then all of a sudden you lose 90 games like you did in 2023 as the St. Louis Cardinals. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, where I just feel like they are fighting against the dying of the light, and this is going to be a fiasco.
All right, can I get a ruling, Lawrence? Am I allowed to be excited about Jaylen Warren? Or honestly, if you just told me to be excited about the rookie who went on day 2, I'll just do that too, because both of these things are exciting to me, if I'm being honest.
You could be excited about Jaylen Warren. He's the one who knows how to pass blocking. When you talking about a quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, when it comes to his receivers, he wants who he trusts. So when it comes to running backs, especially at his age, I want a guy out there who could help protect me the best. But to be honest, even before these reports came out, I still feel like this is going to be a more of a committee than what people think and hope it's going to be. I think Jaylen Warren would be involved a lot more than what people want, I guess. I think when Najee Harris got drafted a few years back in the latter part of the first round, that we kind of, all of us was like talking up him. We knew the Steelers needed a running back. They ended up taking him. And then he was a first round pick and was a top 10 fantasy back as a rookie, but he caught 75 passes in that first year. And I don't think we've seen Najee Harris catch nearly as many passes in the season since then, but that's not going to be the case for Kaleb Johnson. So if you're looking at him and we're talking in the 3rd or 4th round, I'd rather go some guy like DeAndre Swift or something. I think he's much further apart in his competition for touches than what Kaleb Johnson would be to Jaylen Warren at this point.
Lawrence kind of gets at it there for me, Kyle. I just don't know if I want the 2-down grinder in what I think might be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. It's kind of like a team that could maybe run the fewest plays in the NFL. I think they were a little more up-tempo than you might expect with Arthur Smith last year. But that's not Aaron Rodgers' thing, like late-stage Aaron Rodgers. And it's like if I don't expect them to be like extending drive, like even the good Jets drives last year were such marathons. Like it took them like 16 plays to score touchdowns. Yeah. Do I really want the 2-down back? And then a guy who runs almost a 4.6 40 too.
Yeah, and in the, to be honest, Pat, the 4.6 part might not even be the bad part of it. It's the 16 play part, because if it's 16 plays, that means you're at least moving the ball. Is this Steelers offense going to be that efficient? Now, we know they like him as a runner. Mike Tomlin said that as soon as they drafted him. He's like, this is a dude you could give 20-plus carries to. Then they got Arthur Smith, who loved Tyler Algier. Kaleb Johnson, real similar, is a guy who could kind of like run that zone, make that one cut, get up the hole there.
Also, these dudes are
very
just hammers.
Large.
Yeah, definitely. So he will. I don't worry about him getting some carries. I worry about the efficiency of those carries, because how many years did we talk about Najee Harris and his yards per carry average? We talked about that for the past 3 or 4 years now. So if that's the case for Kaleb Johnson, and he can't pass protect, and he can't, and not the dude catching the passes, I think it'll just be closer between the two running backs than what most people realize.
Kaleb, to me, he just profiles as a solid flex. He does not profile as the RB2 he's been going as. He's almost fallen out of the top 24. He might be the RB25 or 26, 27 by the time you're really drafting your home leagues. But Kaleb Johnson, just a guy where I'm exercising some caution. Lawrence, you mentioned Najee Harris a couple times there. Najee Harris, has the mysterious eye injury, the mysterious fireworks injury. Apparently every summer an NFL player needs to suffer a mysterious fireworks injury. It is risky business. Be careful if you do it. I do it every year. I'll never get hurt though. There's still no time.
Even if you do get hurt, you don't have to go play for an NFL team
No,
and
true,
mess up
true.
your few couple millions of
Pat, look,
dollars.
NBC pays you. Yeah, I was gonna say NBC pays you well, but they don't have incentives for you that go up to $10 million. I don't think so.
No, not yet. But so Najee Harris, still no timeline for even a return, Lawrence. I get the feeling that's at least one of the reasons why this first player is one of the guys you're drafting in every league this summer. Who is it?
Yeah, it's going to be Omarion Hampton, and I like Omarion Hampton with Najee Harris there, especially when you look at what Bucky Irvin was able to do last year as the season wore on last year. He eventually took the spot. That's what I think will happen here. But now that we don't have a timeline for this guy to come back, not only should Najee Harris be worried about, his role when it comes to Omarion Hampton, we got the Hall of Fame game tonight. There's going to be other young running backs. Rocket Sanders, one of my boys, brought him up today. He was like, you better watch out for him because that's the similar type of running back to a Najee Harris. And if he's probably going to get the most carries, definitely more than Omarion Hampton in the Hall of Fame game. So he'd better watch out for him too, because we know the league always loves younger guys. We know fantasy managers love younger guys, especially at the running back position. But Omarion Hampton, he just has the skill set. He has the prototypical size that you want in an every down running back. Not just that too. He has the passing skill set, the receiving skill set to do that too. Even though the Chargers won't throw the ball to the running backs as much, as they don't really do that in a Greg Roman offense, but he can do it, right? And we know that Omarion Hampton, he could score from 40, 50 yards out. He could score from the goal line. So a guy that I think could be a top 12 running back as a rookie, especially if Najee Harris doesn't come into the picture real soon.
To everything you said, he has a first-round pedigree. Those guys, too.
That's the biggest part.
You get so much more benefit of the doubt when you're a first-round rookie versus a third-round rookie. And, Kyle, I think Lawrence hit the most important point at the very beginning. This was a guy we liked even when Najee Harris was in the picture. Now, without Najee there, the upside is almost limitless. Maybe famous last words. Greg Roman has always liked the two-back backfield since he was with the Ravens. When he was in San Francisco with Harbaugh, though, they let Frank Gore play almost every down. Maybe it's not set in stone. This has to be a two-back approach. It's just, this can be dangerous, what I'm about to say, but it's hard to even find reasons to be worried about Omarion Hampton at this point. Do you agree?
Guys, I know I've said this before and I've been wrong every time, but I'm invincible. Nothing. But you know what? Like, this is a pretty bulletproof case for a running back to be an RB1 out of the gates. You said this is like, we were all expecting really high things from him, but it was more weighted towards the second half of the season. We were all admitting that, we're going to be frustrated with Najee Harris usage in weeks 1, 2, 3. But by week 5, week 6, we're starting to rank him being Omarion Hampton as a weekly top 10, top 6, top 5 type of running back. And now that option is open out of the gates. And that's really why, I think I'm taking him over Breece Hall. We talked Breece earlier, and I still like Breece Hall as a decent RB1 bet, but the path just seems so much more clear for Omarion Hampton.
Yeah. Lawrence, where do you fall next? They're back-to-back in ADP. Well, Breece Hall's RB12. Omarion Hampton's RB14.
I would go Omarion Hampton. And then you just look at you talk about the two-back system. Last year, they started off with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, right? So that was technically a two-back system. If Najee was back, I said this the other day, Najee would be the Gus Edwards and Omarion Hampton would be the J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins had the best year of his career. He was running back 24 last year in total fantasy points, not on points per game, but total. And he missed the 4 games, and he missed a lot of the 5th game. So you talk about through 12 weeks being a top 16 running back in fantasy points per game. If J.K. Dobbins could do that, I would damn sure bet that Omarion Hampton could be at least the top 12 running back.
And it wasn't Greg Roman, but similar system. If Blake Corum can score 27 touchdowns in the system, maybe Omarion Hampton can do something good with it. Omarion Hampton, again, famous last words when it feels like there are no red flags, but it just really looks like wheels up for Omarion Hampton. RB14, that's got to change. He's got to get into the top 12.
Well, all he has to do is break a long run and one
That's true.
long run.
Dude,
in the
I
Hall of
don't want him
Fame
to. I want him to keep.
It's
I want him
over.
to get
He's
stuck
going in
every
the
single
first
time.
round.
Yeah, he will. It won't I won't be able to draft him anymore. I'll have to draft him like ahead of Jonathan Taylor. So let him get stuffed like 4 times in the Hall of Fame game. I love the Rocket Sanders preseason DFS call. That was an awesome call, Lawrence. We're using that one tonight.
Listen, if you guys may remember, that's a fast track in Canton. In our flag football game, I may or may not have left my DB in the dust. So much in the dust that I got 2 wide open. And Denny thought he could just float the ball to me and the safety wouldn't close.
Very underthrown.
It was very. Remember why that happened? It's one, it happened because I don't really know how to run routes. I won my route too decisively. And
Well, look, nobody has it on tape, so let's just pretend that you ran route like Devontae Adams.
Well, the second I won my route, I just kept going. I didn't come back.
You didn't know what to do after?
No, I won my route decisively, and I just kept going, and then created the opportunity for the center fielder to ball hawk and easily pick it off. So a moment which will live in Rotoworld infamy. Lawrence, your second guy on the list, one of the all-time biggest names in fantasy football. One of the players we're debating more heavily this summer just because of the age, the injury history, the mileage, but the ADP is creeping back up to where it usually is for this player. Who is it? Why are you bullish on this fantasy legend?
Yeah, it is creeping up slowly but surely, and I think it's because folks are starting to realize like he's that dude. That's Christian McCaffrey, and it's basically all about the discount. Even if it, middle to end of the first round, still a discount because again, last year he was picked first overall, but we weren't even sure. People were still taking him. So now I think it's pretty certain that he's healthy now. And then when you think about the fact, Pat, that there's so much going on with the wide receivers there for San Francisco, you got Juwan Jennings, who's dealing with a calf issue now, and he wants a contract. You got Ricky Pearsall still got to prove himself. Brandon Ayuk's there, coming off
in spirit, of course. He's not practicing.
Yeah,
even Jacob Cowling.
So you got
one of the
George
Shanny
Kittle.
specials. Lawrence is hurt. Jacob Cowling. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, so this is gonna be, I think, another year for CMC to get north of 80 receptions again. They're gonna have to depend on him. They're gonna have to depend on George Kittle. You don't have Debo no more, who you could kind of use all over the field. They'll do that more with Christian McCaffrey now. So I just think he's good. You're going to have to lean on him. And I think it's a situation similar to Saquon Barkley last year, which is why Saquon was going into the first, into the second round. Now he's a top 3 pick. So I think it's the same situation for CMC. And I'm basically trying to leave with him because it's coming out of discount.
CMC, who led the league in rushing 2 years ago. And as producer Adam points out, Elijah Mitchell was allowed to walk in free agency. Jordan Mason was traded. Kyle, a vote of confidence in Christian McCaffrey's health after the mysterious Achilles issues, after maybe the mysterious German stem cells. He did. I feel like I'm not imagining. He went to Germany.
No, you're not imagining that. I believe you're correct.
He went to Germany.
He got the stemmies.
To be clear, let me be clear. They didn't report that he got the stemmies. But
he was just hanging out in Germany, just like having fun there.
He went to Germany, though, where mysterious stem cell procedures are known to take place. And a really obvious comparison that I had not heard anyone make until Lawrence just did. It's like 2024 Saquon Barkley vibes here, are there not, Kyle?
Yeah.
Mr. Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, the thing, I think it's reasonable to be concerned with a player who basically didn't play football last year because of a mysterious injury, and he's an older running back. That is the path toward decline. On the other hand, the point about the receiving room being in such disarray, where the upside is that Brandon Ayuk is good, and that upside is realized in week 9 or 10. That's the good scenario, right? Or that Ricky Pearsall comes along in his second year after a really weird first year and then missing a lot of time early in the offseason this year. You're not expecting a lot from these receivers. Juwan, again, the upside is that this 5th-year breakout isn't a myth, and he doesn't get traded after maybe floating out the idea that if he doesn't get a contract, he wants to trade, and missing time in training camp with the calf issue. There was so little to be counted on in the receiver room. that I think the strongest point is that we're going to get so much receiving work from Christian McCaffrey. Wouldn't stun me if he said, at least dating back to his like 1,000 season, which is like 3 or 4 years ago now, at least dating back to then, probably his best receiving season. So that's the upside. To me, the downside, though, is that you just have to take him over super elite receivers. Like, I'm taking Puka over him right now. I'm probably like just 50-50 coin flip between him and like Nico Collins or Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I'm for sure taking CMC over the first two. Who did you say?
Puka, he's so good.
I would say Neighbors though.
Yeah, Puka may be the best player in the whole NFL per Kyle and Denny.
Man, damn, so it ain't nothing I could tell you.
Correct. You have read me correctly.
Is Puka is even the best receiver on his team?
He is. I heard you guys talking about the happy hour. I would say that he is. Matthew made a compelling point.
Devontae Adams, 1,000 yards, and he missed 3.5 games.
It was kind of compelling argument from Matthew there. He got me a little worried. I will say our friends at Madden NFL, they left Puka out of the top 10 receivers. Like,
they usually get stuff wrong.
They had Mahomes at 95 overall.
That's what he is?
Tom Brady 2.0. They put him at 95.
That's
how dare they do my GOAT like that? I don't.
That's what they should have gave Josh Allen a 95.
Come on, man. We digress though. They did give Lamar a 99. To be clear, Lawrence.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
CMC, the really interesting one. There's inherent risk with CMC. There's inherent upside too. It speaks for itself. You're betting on an elite player bouncing back at running back. You're betting on an elite player bouncing back at wide receiver, Lawrence. Who is
it's all about these little discounts for me. And Tyreek Hill, you know, I'm in fantasy drafts. So I'm trying to he's 31 years old and people don't like him, and he had under 1,000 yards last year. I want to take advantage of that because Tua missed a lot of games once again last year. So, third round Tyreek Hill, if I was one of those guys out there who was tough and went RB heavy in the first couple rounds, I wouldn't mind having Tyreek back because, again, Tua missed a lot of games. It affected every skill player on that offense, most specifically Devon Achane, who was a top 8 running back with Tua, not so much without him. So I'm seeing, I think the same will apply for Tyreek, and I think he can get back to it. I think he can get back to being a 1,400-yard receiver. And looking at the Dolphins' defense right now, they losing corners to injury. They trading them away, So they pass rush is the best part of their defense. So if that don't get home, you're gonna see the Dolphins in a lot of situations where they're throwing the ball, and that'll benefit Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Kyle, really fascinating situation with Tyreek Hill, where kind of like CMC, it was one bad season. Unlike CMC, his ADP has crashed. CMC's the RB4, going higher every week, it seems like. Tyreek's struggling to get in the top 12 at wide receiver. He is a speed guy. He's in his 30s. He seemed slower last year. I don't know, but he was hurt. He had a wrist injury all year. That's bad if you're a wide receiver. He said he's working harder this year, as we've talked about on this show.
I'm working harder this year, too.
So Tyreek strikes me as maybe a really fast guy who never had to work that hard. He's like, oh, might actually need to work hard now that I'm in my 30s. I do share Lawrence's optimism on Mr. Tyreek Hill.
I totally did when we could get him in the third round. Now on Underdog ADP, I think he's picked 21, if I remember correctly. And like we're getting to the price where my palms are getting sweaty. Where like if Lad McConkey falls or if AJ Brown falls, these guys who go in the late teens, right? If they fall, then I start getting to making that choice. Right now, he's not quite up there yet. He's like the next tier of receivers down. I'm still okay with it, but I think he'll get to the point where I'm just not interested in him. And when you look at what's coming out of Miami in terms of the reporting, this is from the Sun Sentinel's Chris Perkins. Tyreek Hill hasn't run as many deep routes in training camp at this point as he has in the previous 3 seasons. He's had success against the secondary while running mostly intermediate and short routes. That is not what I want to be seeing. I want to be seeing they're rebuilding the Death Star again. They're building the Miami offense. It got him to back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons. And in turn, we're getting Jalen Waddle has had a strong camp so far. And when you look at what happened to Tyreek Hill last year, it wasn't that he ran fewer deep routes. He did not get open on his deep routes. 2023 and 2022, he was targeted on 20% of his goes, posts, and corners. Basically deep routes, some breaking routes, some just straight speed routes. That is an elite number. That is a guy who is he probably is the best in the NFL at getting open deep, targeted on 17%, a decline of 10% from 27 to 17. It's really like a 33% decline if you're measuring the distance between 27 and 17. He could not get open deep anymore last year. And although he was dealing with the wrist injury, I'm not entirely sure that's an excuse for not getting open. And now you're telling me,
well, if your body's out of alignment, it could hurt getting open too. I mean, you're not hand fighting as much.
I would say this, Kyle, if he's not going as many deep routes in camp, well, then to me, that says more receptions, because in those two 1,700-yard seasons, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just me thinking off the top, I'm pretty sure he went over 110 catches in each of those years. And if we could get that, we solid. And just this too, if I didn't see him running professional track and field times in 100 meters this summer,
he's still fast.
I think I would probably be less bullish. But the fact that he's as fast as he's literally ever been in his life at 31 years old, I'm like, well, because a lot of times when a player get to 31, 32, and sometimes it's true, right? They be like, oh, well, he lost a step because they just say it. Just because. But now we have people do it with Derrick Henry. He might lost a step. Oh, he stepped for 1,900 rushing yards.
I was gonna say, oh, he stepped on my throat. In fact,
but it's like as long as I know Tyreek Hill got the actual speed, then I'm gonna be okay. Like now, if he would have came out this summer running 10.4, 10.5, that's still faster than most people in the NFL. But he himself would be getting slower. Then I'd be like, I don't know. Let me take the value on Jalen Waddle. I mean, I like Jalen Waddle too. I would put both of them on my same fantasy team. But yeah, just to know that, like you said, he's a speed guy, and to know he still has that speed, I would feel decently confident in that.
Before last season, Lawrence, back-to-back 119 reception seasons for Tyreek Hill. My only concern with Tyreek is Tua already got rid of the ball the fastest in the NFL each of the past 2 years. He wants to get rid of it even faster. So
oh my God! Did you
see the line? He better before he
did you see the report that he did? Yeah. Do you see the report that he hadn't thrown an interception in camp? Pat, this is the classic. Yeah. I don't know what the right number of interceptions is. Right? It is more than zero. He is just. It doesn't.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear that number though, because that's just too. That's jinxing it.
That is, yeah, but it's the correct number of interceptions is more than zero. Hopefully, Tua,
you didn't take any risks, and I'm really afraid that they're just going to be the check down team again, and that's just I can't do it.
Hopefully, Tua ever throws deep. Hopefully, we come real quick right back after this. Tune in to NBC Sports Now for all the biggest stories in sports, beginning at 7 a.m. Eastern with PFT Live, followed by the Dan Patrick Show, the Dan Lebitard Show, Fantasy Football Happy Hour, and Chris Sims Unbuttoned. The NBC Sports Now channel is available on Peacock, the Roku channel, Samsung TV Plus, and more. Visit NBCSports.com/now for more details. Lawrence, the next guy we've talked about a lot. We're just going to give you the floor on him. We don't have a ton to add. A guy who had a health scare last week, but everything seems to be normal. Who's your fourth gotta-have guy?
Justin Fields, man. If I don't get one of these top quarterbacks in fantasy drafts, I will wait for Justin Fields. You don't have to worry about him coming out of the game. You don't have to worry about another quarterback starting in 5 or 6 games. It's his year to show that, he's a franchise quarterback. And I think before I even get into the numbers, I think the most important thing is that his head coach, Aaron Glenn, actually believes in this guy. And I don't know if that was ever the case when he was in Chicago. They're building the team around him. First round pick. A lot of us thought the Jets would take Tyler Warren. They still made a great pick in the second round with Mason Taylor. They take Armand Membu. They add to the offensive line. They got Olu Fashanu in his second season. So they're actually building around a quarterback and giving him a shot. Remember, Aaron Glenn faced Justin Fields for 3 seasons, literally coaching against him as a defensive coordinator for the Lions while Fields was with the Bears. So he knows what it is, and he feels like he knows what he can be. Now, what he was last year was kind of what no one was shocked that Justin Fields was quarterback 7 in fantasy points per game in his 6 starts with the Steelers. Most importantly, the team was 4-2. With the Bears, they weren't used to that winning record, right? So, but you had Mike Tomlin versus whatever the hell they had going on over there in Chicago. So we saw him get back to top 10 quarterback fantasy rankings. He did it 2 years in a row as a Chicago Bears, again, in a franchise that really wasn't hitting on nothing. So I think Justin Fields in this particular situation where they're going to build off the running game and kind of run their offense off the running game using those 2 running backs in Breece Hall and Braelon Allen, and then kind of opening up the pass from there. I think that's going to give Justin Fields plenty of opportunities to have nice open passes and nice open run lanes. I think you go for another 800+ yard rushing season.
You absolutely love to hear it, especially Kyle, who I think is overweight on Justin Fields and DFS. And that's a good point on Aaron Glenn. Coached against him for 3 years. He knows all of his strengths. He knows his weaknesses too. He knows what he shouldn't have him do. I think everyone knows what you should have Justin Fields do is lead a run-heavy offense and take advantage of his legs and, work a connection with his elite wide receiver 1, something he did in Chicago with DJ Moore. Justin Fields.
I think he's going to throw for 3,500 yards this year too.
Man, you're talking league winner if that happens.
3,500. Yeah, I think I would put a little I would sprinkle a little something on that.
You're gonna do a nice
17 games. Kyle, you probably the only one that knows this off the top of your head. What's
I
that?
don't like that insinuation.
That's not that many passing yards per game. I'm hoping it's like 190 per, but I don't think.
I think it's over 200. It's over 200.
Yeah, because it's got to be like 205 because 17 times 2
All
would be
right,
34.
so maybe a little 3,300, 34, 205. Our producer Adam tells us 205.8. So give me whatever 195 passing yards per game is. Whatever that is, he'll get that.
And there's no way to know.
Fields, we talked about him a lot. We're going to talk about him a lot more. The final guy you got to have, Lawrence, someone you did briefly talk about in your Fields explanation, who's the 5th and final guy, a young guy you're looking to get in every fantasy league this year.
Yeah, Tyler Warren. I just like the way how the coaches staff and is excited about him. They're using him in every type of way all over the field, just like he was at Penn State. I'm not sure that it matters who the quarterback will be, although I believe it'll be Anthony Richardson.
Yes. We're doing it. We're doing it. We talked about Ant to begin the show. We're all back in.
We're all back in. With flying colors. I don't know if y'all seen that highlight yesterday. He just dropped the dime right in there for Tyler Warren. And Tyler Warren was like, he went up to Anthony Richardson. He was like, "Hey man, me and you, we gonna prove Lawrence right this year." So but Tyler Warren, because he has that quarterback background, I think they fully intend on using him near the goal line instead of their quarterback, Anthony Richardson. We know Anthony Richardson can run into the end zone and run over people, right? But why do that when you're injury riddled all the time? Use the tight end who's got strong hands. He could catch it in the red zone. He could run it in. That could be your tush push guy. He actually, matter of fact, at the combine, he told me he wants to run the tush push. I interviewed him. He's like, I want to do it. Please don't let them ban the tush push. So he actually wants to be that guy. So if he could get points running and receiving and maybe throwing, man, you got to love that.
You absolutely have to love that. You need to immediately send me the Anthony Richardson highlight as soon as we get off the air. We're all the way back in. We're all the way back in. Just such great stuff from Lawrence Jackson. Great stuff from you all the time on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Maybe tell people about when that's going to be on, when you're going to be on, what's coming up.
Yeah, well, next week it'll be back on every day. I'm usually on Thursdays now, the love-hate day, and then fantasy football pregame once the season starts, and we having fun there and here, so it's all good.
Lawrence contributing to our free draft guide as well, which is going live any second now. Awesome stuff all the time from Mr. Lawrence. Awesome stuff from Kyle. sometimes good stuff from Denny Carter, who was on vacation this week. He'll be back with us next Tuesday and Thursday. So for Lawrence and Kyle, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next week.